rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Students, could you lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Oshana?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move item 6, I'm sorry, let me get down there.
Yep.
6A, approval of out-of-state field trips, to 3A.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Do you want to do the other one while you're,
Are we there yet, though?
well, no, we're not. Okay, we can wait. Okay. All right, approval of the minutes from January 12th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we're to item 3B, the approval of out-of-state overnight field trips. Let me get to that section. Now we have we're gonna have two motions in us. But I do believe this is okay, our friends from the FBLA rather. Here we go.
Hello. Hello. I'm Sophie Kassler. I'm a senior officer at Stellington FBLA, and we're asking for permission to attend FBLA's National Leadership Conference, which is going to be in Georgia later this year. The dates are June 27th to the 30th, and each year the top 4 winners of each category at the state's leadership conference have the opportunity to compete in their event at the National Leadership Conference. Last year, 8 of our chapter members, including me and Ryan, attended the National Leadership Conference in Chicago, and it was a really great experience. This year, about 8 members expressed interest in attending if they were to qualify at the state level. The conference is in Atlanta at the Georgia World Congress Center, and we will be staying at a nearby hotel. There will be 2 chaperones on this trip, including Mrs. Joy Cooney, our advisor, and our fundraising efforts would most likely cover at least half of the costs, including hotel and registration fees, but that depends on the number of students who win and commit to attend. We won't know that information until mid-March. And the event would offer us a great experience to attend a variety of workshops and networking events, and we believe the experience would also help set us apart from other applicants when applying to colleges for scholarships. We would appreciate the Board of Education supporting our decision to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Oshana, you?
are Mr.?
So, I was having a conversation earlier. I went to, my last state leadership, or national leadership conference was 38 years ago. And I still am in touch with people that, I say this every year, but it's still in touch with them. So go and enjoy and have a wonderful time. Make your contacts, and take advantage of every minute of it. So I'd like to move to approve the FBLA out-of-state overnight field trip to Atlanta, Georgia, as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yes. Okay, and I see some people from Team 195. Do you want to say something before we make a motion? Don't worry about it. Do I have a motion on the CyberKnights Robotics Team's trip to Houston, Texas, April of this year?
Yeah, I'll move to
It's this
approve the
year.
SHS robotics team
Sure.
out-of-state overnight field trip to Houston, Texas, as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed, so congratulations. You're,
Good luck to you.
and I'm still, I'm waiting for. When you're ready, we'll be ready, okay? So feel free whenever you can, just give us a call, and I can't wait to see it. Because I have never, as I said, I had never been to your kickoff, and I was just so dumbfounded and amazed at the excitement, the activities that you had planned, just wonderful. So, good luck. Thank you. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. Okay, now, communications. Communications from our student reps.
Thank you, and good evening, Board. I'm going to be covering SHS tonight. So in the coming days, a survey will be sent out to Southington High School students from the Board of Ed rep team. First, since semester 1 just ended, we felt the need to send out a general survey for students. We want to know what they think is going well and contributing to their success this year, and we also want to know general topics they are struggling with or have a concern about thus far. After we gauge the responses, we can compile more specific surveys based on overlapping responses that we receive. We also look forward to compiling focus groups from student advocates within the building. We already have a strong group of students who voice concerns and raise questions, and we believe that we must work collaboratively with the administration to be a voice for students who have credible concerns and ideas to improve students' day-to-day experiences. Above all, these ideas and concerns can't merely be talked about. There needs to be definitive action and plans carried out. Everything that the district does is for the benefit of our students, and their voices need to be recognized, and we must be receptive to feedback. This is something we look forward to working on hard over the second semester. Additionally, we are interested in students' experiences with midterm exams. This was the first time we had midterms prior to COVID. It was also many students' first experience with exams, aside from seniors. We are going to put together a survey that we will get input from students on their experiences and work with the administration to provide students a voice on this subject. Our hope is to send out the survey next week. There are a number of ways to effectively assess student understanding, and we believe that with concrete data and feedback from students, we will be able to work with the curriculum director and administration on how finals and future examinations can be conducted in a productive way. Midterms, as I just mentioned, ended this past Tuesday, and it is definitely a relief on the shoulders of many students. With midterms coming to an end on Tuesday, the second semester just started at the high school on Wednesday. Many need to adjust to new classes or lunch waves, but the building has been running as normal, and we hope senioritis doesn't hit our senior class too hard for Ange and I.
Well,
It's a terrible condition.
If you have any tips, let us know. And then a new semester means important testing begins. The first testing will take place on February 8th and through the 15th, and it will be the NGSS test. This is a requirement for all juniors to take, and the test is a science-based test. Senior scholarship opportunities have been released, and information could be found on the Southington High School website. There's a wide range of scholarships for those going into certain fields, those active in certain activities, and much more. The Chinese New Year Festival was earlier today from 2:30 to 4:30, where students were able to experience different Chinese traditions and food in order to celebrate the New Year. And finally, the oratorical contest will take place next Monday, January 30th. Currently, only 2 students are speaking, so we're looking for student participants. Ange and I and UPTES were in a meeting with Mr. Krako, and we mentioned that just going to it, I think, is $250. So we really encourage students to step outside of their comfort zone, and I know that sometimes the board members go and they're very impressed, and so we'd suggest students to go and do that. At the least, if you show up and do that, you're getting a check. So, so that concludes the report from SHS.
Now for the SHS sports report. The SHS boys swimming and diving team is off to an undefeated 5-0 record at the mid-season point of their dual meet schedule heading into tomorrow's meet at Middletown at 4 p.m. The Blue Knights wrestling program hosts its annual Connecticut Challenge Invitational Saturday at SHS starting at 9 a.m. and continuing through the afternoon. 19 wrestling teams from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island will be competing in this event. The team with a 4-1 record hosts Newington tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. in a dual meet. The SHS girls and boys indoor track teams will be competing at the Central Connecticut Conference Indoor Track Championships Saturday at Floyd Little Athletic Center at Hill House High School in New Haven starting at 9 a.m. The Blue Knights varsity and JV cheerleading teams will have their first competition performance of the year this Saturday at Quinnipiac University starting at 12:15 p.m. The SHS boys ice hockey co-op team plays at Enfield Ice Rink Friday night at 7:45, and the girls ice hockey club team travels to Guilford Saturday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. The undefeated Blue Knights gymnastic team hopes Wethersfield Saturday afternoon at 4:30 at the American Gymnastics Center, wrapping up a busy Saturday in Southington High School athletics. And lastly, at the middle school sports level, The girls and boys basketball games between DePaulo and JFK will be held on Friday afternoon, February 17th at 3:45 p.m.
And speaking of JFK, we're now going into the school reports from the other schools in the district. So starting with JFK, congratulations to MN Diop, who was recognized earlier this month by First Baptist Church as the recipient of the Martin Luther King Jr. Award. She was chosen to receive this prestigious honor by her teachers because she is an outstanding person and student who always puts in great effort to all she does. She exhibits leadership in her groups and is always willing to work with others and help them if needed. MN is a huge asset to our students, council, volunteering her time to help out when needed. She's often seen mediating between group members to collaborate and also produce great works. She is always challenging herself and holding herself to very high standards. Also, JFK is in the midst of the Super Bowl contest. Students are asked to donate soup cans and bring them to their advisory classroom. During the next advisory, each group will build a unique sculpture of their choice with the soup cans for an opportunity to win a prize. Afterwards, the soup cans will be donated to the Southington Community Services to be distributed to those in need. On Monday, 8th graders attended an SHS elective presentation during the last 2 periods of the day. Teachers and students from SHS spoke to the students to inform them of programming and course options at SHS. Our 6th grade students participated in a unique online opportunity today through an interactive YouTube presentation from wildlife filmmaker, storyteller, and National Geographic explorer Gunjan Menon shared stories of her adventures through the mountains and jungles of Asia with them. From DePaulo, congratulations to the students, Julianne Frechette and Thomas Cole from 8th grade, Ariana Bose, Adeline Fisher, Sarah Ho, and Neo Sebastian Reyes from 7th grade, who were selected to represent DePaulo at the Hartford County Math Counts competition on February 4th at the University of Hartford. The DePaulo basketball teams are off to a good start this season. The girls have 2 wins and 1 loss, and the boys are undefeated. All DePaulo students are currently collecting canned food for a drive that they're holding over the next couple of weeks. To make it a little fun, each advisory group is having a competition to see which class can set up the best display. After the competition, all canned items will be donated to community services to support families in need in Southington. Also, all algebra students will be taking their midterm exam tomorrow. On Thursday, February 9th, from 5:30 to 7, DePaulo will be sponsoring a Taste of Culture to celebrate the different cultures in our school community. Also, special thanks to the SHS students and staff that presented to all the grade 8 students at DePaulo last Friday. Grade 8 students are now getting ready to select their electives for 9th grade. Now from South End, the South End Drama Club is in full swing, dancing, singing, and rehearsing for their May performances of Matilda Jr. Parents and 1 former South End student are leading the charge. It's sure to be a toe-tapping weekend. From Darnowski's PTO sponsored a cultural arts program, Corey the Dribbler. This former Globetrotter not only showed his skills with the basketball, but he also brought a message of why showing good character at all times is so important. The program aligned with our steps and character counts messages. The students and staff loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I have one. How were midterms?
Stressful.
Special? Okay.
I said
Oh,
stressful.
stressful. Stressful?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you haven't had them.
Yeah, first
Yeah,
time.
It's good that they're broken up by a half day, though. That definitely helps.
it did, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
But still stressful.
Yeah.
Still stressful.
Okay. I'm sure you did well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Okay. Thank you.
You hope.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one comment.
Yes, sir.
How does, and please go back to your classmates with this, but I'm curious to know how both the boys hockey team and the girls hockey team feel about going to different ends of as far north as you can go and as far south as you can go, traveling to play games. And a caveat to that, as a big advocate of reducing transportation costs here in the district, I have my own personal thoughts on that. But I'd be curious to find out what your classmates think about traveling to Enfield and Guilford
It's certainly a hike.
to play games.
Yeah. We'll get back to you on that, but it's certainly a
Thank
hike.
you.
Any other questions? Thank you, students. Okay. Communications from the Board of Education.
I know we're going to be talking about the budget later. I just wanted to follow up on the workshops we had last week. I was traveling. I was away for work, but I was able to, through the magic of technology, join in over we did FaceTime. and I was able to participate for a period of time, but I think I lost my audio for a bit. So Mr. Medancy was very helpful. I just wanted to raise 2 points because I know it's going to be part of the discussion later. I had asked a couple of questions, and I think you heard some of them. I think you missed some of them. Not missed them, you just didn't hear them because it wasn't coming over. And it had to do with the non-lapsing funds, right? And one of the questions I asked, and I think I got the answer, was, are there dates at this point on the non-lapsing fund item projects, the not started ones, for them to start? And I think I heard the answer was no. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Because the question was, and I think the comment that was missed was, I think it makes sense that we put those on hold. Let's just wait, like we tabled last week, or the week before at our last board meeting, some of the items, except for safety-related items, which we need to do. There's no question about that. But the thought of putting those items on hold until after the budget gets done. So I just wanted to, as in preparation for our discussion later, get that out there, because I don't know if it got communicated.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to also say, Mr. Darrenowski and Mrs. Anastasio are not with us this evening, as you can tell, because both of them are under the weather. Otherwise, they would have been here, so I just wanted to explain that to you. Okay, communication from the administration. Mr. Medancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Pepe has the first item this evening.
Just want to offer thank you to Southington Fire Department, who invited our 4th and 5th graders to participate in the fire prevention poster contest. The theme was everyone, every day. And if you bear with me, I just want to announce our winners per school. From Darrenowski School, Carmine Taft and Sebastian Labar. From Flanders, Maya Persin and Dominic Trocolo. From Hatton, Easton Boutat and Olivia Albanese. From Kelly, Aubrey Zotter and Malaya Bontempi. From Oshana, Tai and Lily Hall. From South End, Melania Macarelli and Rebecca Alejandro. From Strong School, Amber Diamond and Amelia Lai. And Thalberg, Mariah Singhal and Ryan Scott. A very special thank you to all of our elementary art teachers for helping coordinate, and especially for Joelle Castonguay, who was the point person to put it all together. Gave our kids an opportunity again to strengthen our ties to our first responders.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Other items for you. Just wanted to share a little bit of information that I was copied on through our network manager, and I felt was worth passing along to all of you, just to kind of make sure we acknowledge and appreciate the work of the technology department. As all of you know, since coming on to the board, the infusion of technology that has occurred has been monumental, and we've not increased staffing. So people are just working a lot harder with a lot more devices, to maintain. And I know, Mrs. Carmody, you are the technology czar and don't need much support in technology, but I know Mrs. Poon spends a little bit of time helping you. But with that, some of the accomplishments that I want to just share, and I think they seem maybe light or easy if you just minimize it to a bullet point, but there's a lot of time behind. And I'm going to probably pick on James here because of his background with technology. Between anything when you're transitioning devices and you have to image them and make sure you have all the malware and virusware and all of the different settings in line with in ways that'll protect our network. We've seen school systems that have been hacked by cyber attacks in the past couple of years, and if that ever happens to your district, it's a big problem. So deploying over 300 MacBooks, which means taking 300 MacBooks offline or other devices and re-imaging and redistributing them, inventorying them, and whatnot. We replaced 88 smartboard projectors with the Interactive View Sonics. And we started with them in one building, and the teachers fell in love with them, and now they're all asking for them. But it's essentially a large TV that's a touchscreen TV that also works in conjunction with your device, almost like an AirPlay would work with an Apple device. And they've found them to be super user-friendly versus the traditional camera mounts against a whiteboard, which there's calibration settings, and sometimes the lighting into classrooms can affect that. So, but getting those installed during school, while school is in session, is not easy because you obviously don't want to disrupt classes, so they had to work around prep periods, lunch periods, before and after school and whatnot. We distributed over 1,000 Chromebooks to essentially replenish an inventory of outdated Chromebooks. a lot of last-minute tech requests, and then went through a lot of recycling of technology. You know, you're probably aware there's processes for disposing of the technology, but there's also some potential revenue that can be garnered from going through recycling processes, depending on what it is that we have. So the work has just been, that was all just this first half of the year that they've been doing, but it's a lot of work in addition to all of the tickets that they receive from teachers or paraeducators or students that need support on their individual device. And you can imagine what that looks like with 6,500 students and 1,200 employees. So there are 8 of them in the entire district. So it's a real credit to their customer-minded approach to doing things. I've heard the narrative from in over the last 3 to 4 years, from when people were frustrated by, putting in a ticket whenever there's a technology concern, to how amazing our technology department is, and whenever they need something, it gets done. And it's a real compliment to that technology team and their leadership. Also, Mrs. Cavallaro could not be here tonight because I asked her to attend on the district's behalf to the grand opening of the UConn Child and Family Development Program. So UConn Behavioral Health had an opening celebration this evening from 6 to 7:30. That is on 1115 West Street in Southington. I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Fitzgerald earlier this year, along with Mrs. Cavallaro, to talk about partnerships with the district and UConn Behavioral Health. As many of you are aware, it's really challenging for families to find access to mental health care right now, especially when we talk about behavioral health. Oftentimes, a child may be in crisis and the need is immediate, and yet you'll call different agencies and you'll be put on an appointment calendar several weeks, if not months out. And so trying to work directly with Dr. Fitzgerald so that when we have referrals for kids who are truly in crisis, we can connect with UConn Behavioral Health or Hartford Healthcare, which is our other partner, to see if we can assist. So definitely a great addition to our community, having them in town. And Monday from 6 to 7:30, Mr. Pepe will be taking his show on the road at Topalo Middle School. He'll be hosting a kindergarten orientation session. And for those of you who have not been, if you've never been, it's a nice opportunity to see how do we orient our parents into district and what information do we provide for them. So there's a lot of information just about registration processes and whatnot, which can be new for families. They've never had to go through it, and there's a lot of documentation required. We want to prove residency and custody and all those types of things. In addition to that, we provide them with a presentation of a day in the life of a kindergartner. And so there's a kindergartner teacher there who kind of walks through what it's going to look like. And then later in the spring, parents are invited to their child's homeschool, wherever that will be, and they get more building-specific orientation in terms of start and end times, drop-off, pick-up locations, after-school care, school programs that are unique to that building and whatnot. So a good start for us. And I remember each year when I was in Mr. Pepe's role, just kind of saying, can I have a show of hands, how many of you is this your first child coming to school? And that's usually the majority of the audience, but yet it's usually very well attended. And so it's really important that we make a great first impression because they're sending us their best, and for many families that can be an anxious time. And then lastly, this may not surprise you all, but it's just kind of touching. I received an email from Mr. Levin on January 11th sharing with me that day, one of our former principals and a dear friend of Karen Smith, Sally Kemmerbeek, has restarted the book club at Karen Smith Academy. So that was their first day, and another former principal and friend of Karen, Betty Lutz, is going to be working with her. So you know that Karen Smith Academy became dear to Karen during her time post-retirement, volunteering and starting reading initiatives with the students at Karen Smith Academy. And so it's great to see her friends carry on that legacy.
It's wonderful.
So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. All right, next on the agenda is communications from the public. I would ask, if you're planning on speaking there, the computer is, okay, if you could put your name and your address for our records before you speak. So do I have communications from the public? Okay. And could you state your name and address for us, please?
My name is Jennifer Olette, and my address is 87 Johanna Circle. Tonight, I just wanted to bring to your attention, which I'm sure you're all aware, I have a 4th grader at Thalberg Elementary School. Now, I I haven't really gotten answers, but I've heard Thalberg is at max capacity. We have 3 fourth grade classes. Each class has about 23 students. Last week was the first week that my daughters had a full class because these kids are getting sick constantly. I've also heard that next year they're planning on possibly taking one of our 4 fifth grade teachers and putting them down to 4th grade. Now this will again only leave these 4th graders in 5th grade 3 classes, where this will pretty much be their prime time getting them ready for middle school. I've also heard that we bus in kids from other towns. My thing is if we have a school at max capacity, why are we not helping our students in this town by trying to lower the overcrowded classes? I do know that they had to make the music room at Thalberg into a classroom. That's pretty much all I had to ask. I don't know if I'll get answers, but it's pretty sad when your 4th grader comes home complaining that she doesn't like school anymore. It's overcrowded. They're cramming too much into them, trying to play catch up with COVID. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Elise Krantz. I live at 44 Bridle Path Drive. First, I just wanted to thank you. I'm incredibly grateful that the stories and testimonies that me and some of my neighbors here in Southington that have shared with you have opened your eyes to the experiences of some of the experiences of the Jewish students here in the district. While I'm disappointed that the board did not vote to adopt a calendar that includes Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as official school holidays, I am excited the board has expressed a desire to revisit the language of Policy 5113, which mentions excused absences due to the observation of religious holidays. The current wording, which hinges on the phrase appropriate provisions, is, as the superintendent pointed out at the last board meeting, somewhat subjective, right? What may be appropriate to one teacher in one of our schools may not be appropriate to another. So what kind of change would make sense? How, as Mr. Medancy said, can we tighten up this language? I would like to recommend that the board votes to prohibit the assignment of homework, the administration of tests, and the introduction of new material on Jewish holidays. I know this sounds a bit drastic, but I would like to remind the board that this will impact our school community only 1 or 2 days out of the entire academic year. That's it. And yet, with this small change, we would be taking a huge step forward. A policy change like this would send a powerful message, one that would remind the Jewish community, myself included, that we have allies among school leadership. This change would not only show that Southington Public Schools values and respects the religious beliefs and practices of Jewish students, it would also send the broader message that our district is committed to creating an inclusive and welcoming environment for all. I see 2 other beneficial outcomes to a possible shift in language. Adjusting Policy 5113 to explicitly prohibit teachers from assigning homework, administering tests, and introducing new material would also promote greater educational equity in our schools. Currently, when Jewish students are absent from school on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they miss the opportunity to engage with the material in a way that's equal to their non-Jewish peers. Additionally, adjusting the current policy would allow Jewish students to participate in these important family and cultural traditions without feeling pressure to prioritize their schoolwork. Again, I know these changes seem big, and I recognize they seem to serve a small percentage of students in our district. But if this policy change leads to discussions and open conversations among teachers, among students, among families, about why Jewish students might be absent on these days, about why Jews here in Southington need their support, about why, even in 2023, Jewish students are still facing anti-Semitism, we will be serving far more than just a handful of students. We could be impacting the entire district. If your teachers would be interested, I would be more than happy to provide a one-pager about each of the important Jewish holidays just to help them better understand why these days are so important to their students. And I'm happy to say that Rabbi Alana Wasserman of Gishrei Shalom Jewish Congregation here in Southington has offered to serve as an advisor to the board if you'd like to seek the guidance of a local faith leader as you discuss and work to implement these possible changes. Thank you for demonstrating your commitment to supporting the academic success and the well-being of our Jewish students. This would be an amazing first step. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public?
Susan Zabahansky, 28 Working Street. I'm speaking on the budget, as I'm sure you all can imagine. There's a couple of things I wanted to cite. At the last budget workshop, the superintendent presented us with a bunch of school districts that he said were similar to Southington when it came to enrollment size and the number of percentage of special education, considering them equal. One of those was Manchester, East Hartford, I believe Trumbull was another. There were multiple, I can't remember them all. But I want to kind of point out a few things about those districts. Manchester, first of all, their ask for budget increase was 4.38%. East Hartford was 2.3% increase this year. This is for this budget cycle. Manchester gets 16 million more in ECS funding. East Hartford gets 34 million more in ECS funding. Trumbull, which we claim did not get, didn't use much state funding, they get 2.2 million of ECS funding. But Trumbull's annual revenue for their tax, basically their grand list, what they bring in, is 217 million because they have a mall and various other businesses that help support their tax base. And that means we have 48 million, they have 48 million more to spend than Southington. I also like to point out that Trumbull has a high school that has a pool, they have a middle school that has a pool, they have a public golf course. I mean, there's multiple things. So these, we can't really compare these things, and I don't know that anyone in Southington would want to live in East Hartford with a 49.35 mil rate. That would put taxes through the roof. Our long-term debt in Southington is over $240 million. About 50% of that is related to the schools. And that would be renovations to the elementary schools and the middle schools at one point. In this town, we were questioned whether we value education. We give more money than any other service in our town to education, at the tune of over 61.9%, just considering the Board of Ed budget and not considering the town portion that's paid into the Board of Ed budget. The Board of Ed receives over $104 million of our approximately $168 million operating budget. This means we have only $64 million, including paying the debt services, which we just discussed, 50% of it is for the schools, to run our town. That includes police, fire department, EMS, the highway department, etc. We have had a lot of money spent on infrastructure, as we all know. I just cited some of that. Up until recently, it was for school development. The town also said that we are to have a referendum for any project over $1 million to allow the voters to decide on major spending. Last November, the voters were asked to spend $21 million related to the schools. The voters turned down $17.9 million of that, allowing for the roof replacement. We should be very cognizant of that. It's very telling. 20% of residents in Southington are over the age of 65, many on fixed incomes. 45% of our population lives in naturally occurring affordable housing, which is now being redefined by the Democrats. The annual income of our town is not comparable to Avon, Simsbury, Farmington, that was used in previous comparisons. It's far lower. We don't live in a rich town. We are a town composed of a wide variety of income levels. We have to keep our taxation low in order to encourage businesses to come in. Currently, 67% of our tax base comes from residents. We need to encourage growth of that by allowing businesses to come in. It's a balancing act. The revenue from businesses helps bond projects like the new elementary school construction. We've known that these times are coming. It's time that we start working proactively to limit spending and not be part of the problem of placing a continued monetary burden on the people of Southington. We don't fight inflation with further spending. That is what got us here in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Katie Wade, 39 Madeline Lane. I want to thank you guys, the board and the administration, for all the time you devote to our schools all year, but especially at this time of year. So it's budget time, and it's been shocking, I think, to a lot of people to see the financial position the town has put our schools in. For the second year in a row, the proposed budget is for level services. No new positions, no new programs, none of the major projects or equipment needed by the district have been included in this budget. And yet we need more than a 7% increase to maintain our schools. Part of that is because, as we all know, everything is more expensive right now. Part of it is the way Southington has been funding our schools. Certainly, as Mr. Carson said at the January 19th budget workshop, our funding and grants have been affected by state and federal decisions. But as we've been able to see with the data that was thoughtfully and professionally presented by Mr. Medancy at the budget workshops, districts that are demographically similar to Southington, with tax bases similar, some more robust than Southington, are not facing the same fiscal cliff. Last year, the town chose to cut $500,000 from the level service budget, and we lost 13 paraeducator positions. At the budget meeting I attended, sorry to pick on you tonight, but Mr. Carson said that we're looking to find savings in places where we're already razor thin. He suggested a resetting of the foundational education costs and expenses in this town. And I think parents would like to know what a reset means. Many people, myself included, made the decision to move to Southington largely based on the schools. New homes are going up. Some very expensive new homes are going up. Families are moving here. And I'm open to the idea that changes need to be made. But I think the overwhelming sentiment among parents in this town is that we love our schools. We want to keep them, not reset them. I'm aware that the ultimate decision on school funding does not come from this board. I just want you to know that parents in this town want our Board of Education to fight to properly fund our schools. To tell our council and Board of Finance unequivocally that we need to keep our schools. Tell them that we see the signs they put up at election time telling us that they support students and teachers, and that their constituents just want to find out that they mean that. So thank you for your attention and best of luck.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, thank you all. Old business, item 5A, Town Government Communications. Does anyone have Mr. Medancy? No? Okay. Then moving on to item 5B, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, move to approve that the board accepts policy 9321, time, place notification as written.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. O'Shana.
Mr. O'Shana. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Move to approve, or move that the board approve policy 9325, meeting conduct as presented in the package.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And now to Mrs. Carmody.
Yes. The Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the Science Grade 7 unit Metabolic Reactions to the full board for a second reading. And I don't know if that's a vote or not, Colleen, is it?
Yeah, it is. You have to make a
Okay,
motion
so
to
May I have a
approve.
motion on that?
Yes.
So moved.
And Mr.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one?
Thank you. The Board of Education Curriculum Instruction Committee is bringing the SHS English 4 course to the full board for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
You can make the motion, Mrs. Carmody. You don't have to, you can just say,
I
motion
wanted
to
Joe.
Motion
approve.
to-
Motion to
I
approve.
want Joe to do it, so.
Oh. You can just say motion to approve.
Motion to approve, yes, I'll do that next,
You can
okay?
do
I'll-
that. That's
I'll
fine.
approve.
That's fine.
All right, so did we approve that one?
Yes, we did.
All in favor?
Ahoy, yeah.
I make a motion, Mrs. Clark,
Thank you.
that the Board of Education Instruction Committee is bringing English 1 proposed text changes to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving right along. Okay, keep going.
I'm going.
Okay.
Make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the SHS Conceptual Chemistry Unit Aquatic Apocalypse to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next.
Next, I make a motion that the Board of Education and Curriculum is bringing the SHS Special Education Course proposals to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Continuing,
For
Busy,
approval.
busy.
Busy, busy.
do
Yes.
we approve that one?
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
we're ready? Okay. I make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee bring the SHS proposal for a first aid CPR elective to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Continuing, I make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the SHS Achieve Art Shop course proposal to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the Science Grade 8 Unit Colossal Collision Unit to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Continuing, make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the SHS Consumer Math course to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the SHS Health 1 course to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Continuing, I make a motion that the Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee is bringing the SHS Health 2 course to the full board for a second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And if I might add that we were extremely, and you were there, Mrs. Clark, I believe. Were you there too, Jasper, for that meeting? That all of those courses were so well presented by the teachers, and we are so proud of the work that the teachers have done for that. It really shows a lot of hard work on their part. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmody. Okay, and the last item on the new business, on the old business rather, is the review adoption of the 23-24 Board of Education operating budget.
I'd like to move that the Board of Education approve the 2023 through 2024 operating budget in the amount of $110,980,656.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. O'Shannah.
Where'd that number come from?
Sorry, what did you
I
say?
guess where the number came from.
Yeah, how did you arrive at that number? What is the
May I-
percentage?
May I? I'm going to explain that, if I may. This is a tough year, as we all know. This is probably the hardest year that I've ever seen, with a combination of inflation, insurance, transportation costs, working with Mr. Medancy and seeing where he ended up. After our budget workshops, I went back to him and I asked him, the only money that we had available was the non-lapsing accounts. That was the only variable that we had. And I asked him, of the non-lapsing accounts, everything is important. We all know that. We know that we need to fund our schools. We also know we need to do work in our schools. And there's things that we need in our schools. What were the 5 non-negotiables that we could keep in our non-lapsing account and take the rest of our non-lapsing account and use for this year's operating budget in this extraordinary year that we are having?
Was that part of the workshop, though? I don't remember that in the workshops.
No, it was not part of the workshops.
So how did you arrive at this? Because we,
That's what I'm explaining.
okay.
Okay? I went back to Mr. Medancy, because quite honestly, we have to look at this. This is a town problem. It's a problem for everyone. Inflation is a problem for everyone. We know that families are struggling. We know that you go into the grocery store and everything is more expensive. We know that our insurance bill has skyrocketed for the schools. So I went to him and I said, with that non-lapsing account, I don't want to do this. But at the end of the day, what are the absolute must-haves? What do we have to keep with that non-lapsing account? Okay? So what I did was we came up with the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure renovations that he had asked for $222,530. We took $100,000 out of that. We need to continue the work on the elementary school projects because we're going to referendum in September, hopefully. The Title I funding, that was cut by the federal government correct me if I'm wrong, it was October. We were shorted $256,932 by the federal government. Where are we getting that money from? We are required to have PCB monitoring at DePaulo, JFK, and the Municipal Center. That's a requirement. We can't get around it, to the tune of $14,000. And we're required to do asbestos testing every 3 years, to the tune of close to $10,000. These are things that we have to do, regardless of inflation, regardless of anything else. And those projects came up to $454,012. And then we looked at teacher salaries, the teachers that we wanted to put back in the operating budget where they belong, that we weren't able to do last year, and we wanted to put them back in. You know what we did? I said, can we take them back out? So that's to the tune of $224,000. So after all was said and done, oh, and one more thing, the electric, that we don't have a number for yet. We don't have a number. Our consultant has not given us what the budget should be. $50,000. Adding that all up, it comes to a total of $795,228, which brings our operating budget down to $110,980,656 for an increase of 6.28% from the original 7.64.
So what are we cutting? What are we gonna cut out of the non-lapsing?
Everything else.
Let's talk about them, though.
Okay, let's.
I'm confused, because I wasn't involved in any of these discussions.
Yeah, that's my question. You say we. Who was we that discussed?
I had the discussion with Mr. Medancy.
So you and Mr. Medancy made
So
those
it was
decisions?
you and Mr. Medancy?
And then we had a caucus. I had a caucus with my fellow Republicans.
All right, so if I may.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 9-member board.
Yes, I know.
It is not a 6-member board.
I realize that.
And I personally, these never came up at our workshops. I think it would have been courteous if we were, the 3 Democrats that are on this board, were somewhat, shape or form included in this discussion. This, it really is very bothersome to me that we were not. Because I have many questions that I want to ask about the non-lapsing fund. And some other questions, if you want me to bring those up now, or do you?
Well, if I can just, I understand that this is something we have not done in the past, and I realize that. We have not, if I may. And the reason I was not able to contact you, I had a death in the family and I have been out of town. So I was not able to contact you. Is that an excuse? No, but it is my explanation as to why I had not contacted my fellow board members. I did try to reach out to you. I tried to reach out to you, Mr. Oshana, today. I wasn't able to have a full conversation as I did with my fellow Republicans. So I will own that. I own that. But at the end of the day, a 7.31 budget was not going to pass. It just was not. We had to do something. So I had a conversation with Mr. Medancy to figure out where we could. So we can discuss further. This is the forum for us to have this discussion.
Okay, so if I may.
Yes.
I believe that this has become very political on this board, okay? And that is very disturbing to me, very disturbing to me. I think our responsibility as an elected member of the Board of Education is to support a budget that is best for the students in the school system. That is our responsibility. Not that we are not aware of what is going on with all, we are all taxpayers, so we all are aware of that. But that isn't our job. Our job is to do what is best for students. I don't believe that we should touch the non-lapsing fund. I think we should leave it in case there are emergencies. We don't know about our self-insurance. Mr. Medancy, can you tell me what are the deductions in the state aid, the actual number that is not going to change that we know for certain?
So the original number in 21 was 20,466,000 and change. There was a hold harmless provision that basically froze the ECS funding formula that was adopted in 2017. So we've seen the last 2 years that 20,466 without the reductions that were supposed to occur.
Right.
Now, usually it's a 10-year formula that's applied. It was supposed to expire in 2028. It's now been extended to 2030 because of the 2-year freeze. So the phase out continues in 2024. So the educational cost sharing state aid that Southington will be receiving will be reduced by 14.69% next year. And so that's a source of revenue that I'm certain is going to also affect the budget, because we look at the local contribution and the state contribution and as well as the federal, although that's so minimal, to come up with the total operating budget.
So that has quite an effect on our budget, obviously.
Yes. So I know the question has been asked about educational cost sharing, and it's not easy on some levels, and on other levels, like if you spend enough time with it, it's a little easier to digest. But with that said, I have.
And Mr. Superintendent, if I may.
Can you let him finish?
Okay.
So with the 14.69 decrease next year, we are looking at 20,431,984. So it's a reduction of 34,433 next year.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, it's a reduction of, and I'm just now going to go over the total. Fiscal year 25, it's a reduction of 68,800. Fiscal year 26, it's a reduction of 103,000. Fiscal 27, it's a reduction of 137,000. Fiscal 28, it's a reduction of 172,000. Fiscal 29, it's a reduction of 206,000. And fiscal year 30, it's a reduction of 240,000. And the way they calculate that, the most important and probably simplified way to explain it to anyone who wants to understand the state grant funding and why do we get what we get as opposed to, let's say, what East Hartford gets, which was represented earlier. There's something called a base aid ratio, and it's really the primary indicators they use to design that formula. And it's based on two primary factors. 70% of what's called property wealth. Property wealth is determined by a town's equalized net grant per capita compared to the state median town. So because our property wealth, and then the second factor is 30% is income wealth, which is the median household income. So they combine the property wealth and median household income, and that's how they arrive at what, against your per pupil, the enrollment, and that's how they arrive at the educational cost sharing revenue. Now there are other weighted factors that fluctuate that, to a degree, high needs populations, multilingual learners, and what have you. I'm not going to go into detail on that because they're not large driving factors in terms of that big number. Those two examples I provided, the property wealth and the income wealth, are the two main. So what I was explaining with the educational cost sharing is that there's a bill right now called the Student-Centered Funding Bill that would essentially take the current formula that was adopted in 2017 that I just shared with and eliminate it starting in your fiscal year 2025. So not right now, we're working on the budget for fiscal year 24. So next year at this time, we'd be looking at a new formula being applied to fiscal year 25, which would not penalize Southington in the way that we're about to be penalized the next 8 years for being overfunded by the state. Now, can we argue that we're overfunded? Certainly, because I don't think it's nearly enough. But it's a formula they use for every municipality, so regardless of what I think, it's the same metric, and that's what determines it, and I don't have the authority to change that. With that also said, the new formula in 2025, while it would still affect the educational cost share revenue, there's also some language within it that would essentially prevent or eliminate the practice of districts having to pay tuition for out-of-district students, not special education outplay students, but our students that we pay tuition for now that are in charter magnet schools that are not in Southington. We receive tuition bills annually for those. So that's an expense on our side that would then become revenue because the tuition would be wiped out. So with the new formula and no longer having to pay the tuition for students, Southington would be netting $725,000 in fiscal year 25, not next year, fiscal year 25. And so obviously that's something we have to watch very closely and hope comes to fruition because it's either netting $725 in fiscal year 25 or by the time all is said and done in 2030, being reduced by $240,000.
But you use the word hope. This isn't passed.
Correct.
And you don't create a budget based on hope.
Correct.
You base a budget based on fact, right?
Yep.
Right.
So we can't hope that we're going to get $700,000. This could go nowhere.
So it was in legislation last year and it did not.
Right.
Yes.
And we have a tendency to see a lot of legislation come up and fail at the state level. So, I mean, to create a budget based on hope is, I think, foolhardy. And you want to talk about a failed way of creating a financial plan for the town of Southington. I think that's a great way of doing it. So I can't justify $725,000 coming in 2025,
Right.
offsetting a budget this year, right? So, could I ask, are you?
Well, hold on, Mr. Carson.
Well, I
wanted
was
to-
still under discussion here, I think.
Okay, well, Mr. Carson had a question for the superintendent.
She can continue.
Okay.
Mr.
Mrs. Harmony?
Medans, yeah.
Okay.
To continue with what you were saying, because it was mentioned at one of our workshops that some people, or one board member, I can't remember exactly who it was, thought that that reduction in the state aid would change. It is not going to change. It is exactly what you have told us, correct?
Correct. That's already
It's not going to change. It's in writing. That's what it is, okay?
it's statute. Yep.
The same with the reduction in the Title I.
Correct.
Correct, that's going to stay also. So those are big losses for us.
Correct.
Very big losses for us. I just want to make that clear to all the board members, because I don't know who it was that said they thought that perhaps the governor is going to change that amount. That is not going to happen, correct?
I can't, the governor presents his budget on February 8th. I can't predict what he's going to do at that time.
But I thought you said this was in writing that.
Well, last year was when he applied the provision to hold districts harmless. Last year was the year it would have changed, and he let it stay, which is how we continued with the 2466 and change. And so I think the action was taken last year. I mean, could he do something different on February 8th again?
No.
That put us further behind the 8 ball? Yeah, potentially. But there also could be the potential that something happens that falls in our favor. I really can't predict what he'll do
Okay.
yet.
All right, thank you. I'm done, Sean.
No comment.
Okay,
I'm not done.
okay.
So I want to go through what we're cutting from the non-lapsing account. Could we go line by line, what we're cutting and why?
Sure. If you look on page 50 of our budget book.
Page what?
50?
Page 50.
Page 50.
Let's go through them.
Okay.
Whoever's proposing to cut, let's talk about why you're cutting and
Okay.
what we're going to do in instead of that.
What we're keeping,
Because again, from what I had said earlier, what I'd like to do is not spend any of this money. Put it on hold until we get through the budget process and figure out where we are. Not cut it and apply it to the budget. So,
okay. It would be the technology infrastructure renovations would be reduced to $122,530.
so we're cutting from 222,530 to 122,530?
Right.
So that's phase one of how many phase plan is that? Where's is
Phase 2 of 5.
and how many one-to-one devices do we have in this district?
6,300
And how's our system
plus
doing?
minus.
Why are we doing a 5-year phase-in of fixing the infrastructure?
The switches, access points, host replacements, battery backups.
So if we have a failure in the infrastructure, what happens?
Depends what fails and what we have available to repair it.
So the one-to-ones can go down. We could have an issue communicating within the school. High school might have a problem, can't use our system, can't use it. Okay, all right, so next, what else is next?
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
We're keeping the work on the elementary project to the tune of $50,000. The next items that are being removed are the maintenance liftgate vehicle purchase, removal of dark room, replace the worn floor with tile, VCT tile,
Where's the worn floor?
at various locations.
And why are we replacing the
That's
worn
Southington
floor?
High School.
Yeah.
It's not on that page.
Yes, it is.
Mr.
Yes,
Romano,
it is.
can you come up for a minute? I'm sorry,
No, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. That's what we're here for.
where are we replacing the worn floors at the high school? Why are we doing that?
The main office, W-273, 258, East Wing various, and the AD office.
Yeah. Obviously, these are areas that are worn and they do need replacement. It's an,
Aesthetic thing?
yes, it's an ongoing thing. We try to keep up with it.
Just for aesthetics, though?
No, well, I mean, yeah, it's, I wouldn't say that these tiles, are loose. There are some areas where we have that, but it's not every area, so I don't wanna.
So it's a combination of aesthetics and safety.
Yes, yes, yeah. And aesthetics is maybe not the right way to look at it.
So it's a safety issue.
It is a safety issue. They won't hold
Cut
wax
a safety
anymore.
issue. Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay. The replacement of the exterior aluminum doors in the cafeteria.
Those are to lead to the outside, right? Why are we replacing those?
They are not functioning properly anymore. There is 8 doors that lead out. 4 of the 4 internal doors do not operate properly, and although we've made as many adjustments as we can, they just they don't function properly.
When you say function, what do you mean? Doors open and close, they lock,
Yep.
they latch. What's not happening?
They just don't close and open smoothly. They need a little bit of extra help.
So they could potentially not close and latch properly.
Correct.
So another safety issue. Okay. What else?
When you close a door, do you make sure it latches?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I
So,
do.
and that happens when we close the doors?
That's good practice. I can't say everybody does, but that is good practice. And we do have the security at the high school. It's not a problem that we're not aware of. So
Okay,
we-
so
you
it's
know,
not, so it's not safety at this time?
I mean, I can't say it's not safety, because if a security guard misses and the door's not latched, it is a safety issue. But
High school student closing a door.
But yes, but the bigger part of these doors is that the glass has let go, so that there's condensation in between them.
Okay. The repair and replacement of walkways, ramps, and sidewalks?
Ongoing projects for us.
Ongoing
yeah.
projects that you have, okay.
So broken sidewalks, cracks, puddles, ice, wintertime stuff, trips, falls. Okay.
Yes.
Another safety issue. Okay.
Contracted painting services, the high school visitor entry system upgrade, replace smart boards with interactive monitors.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
the high school visitor entry upgrade.
That was a project that the previous superintendent was championing. I really can't speak to. I mean, yeah.
So it's the goal is to create a system whereas we're not letting the visitors into the building prior to verifying the reason for them being at the building and their identity. And so they're looking to put and I know they presented this, I believe it was at the finance committee, to present like a canopy and a teller window type thing so that folks could announce themselves and their reason for being there. We can check ID, we can verify with staff that they have a reason to be there, and then obviously allow them access.
So eliminating that, we'll keep what we have now, which is you're in the entryway there, access to the stairs and the entry of the building.
Yes.
With some guy in the corner checking your ID.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Replace smart boards with interactive monitors. We are doing the required PCB and the AHERA testing. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Removal of office inside classroom C230. Classroom furniture replacement, office furniture replacement. In the next section, classroom library books and guided reading books, classroom equipment
So
replacement.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, what are classroom library books?
So there's an allocation each year, and so depending on the amount of sections we have, someone was speaking tonight about the sections, and they fluctuate. At times, if we know there's going to be a shift in sections, we purchase classroom libraries for those. If it's a new section that doesn't have that grade level existing in the prior year,
And so there's an expectation that that's happening? That's why this is in here?
it could be due to that, or a principal has put in a request to add funding for their particular buildings relative to enhancing their classroom libraries if they feel their volume or inventory is low.
So those books wouldn't be available to the students?
Correct.
The next item, classroom equipment replacement, various locations, replacement of two-way radios.
So two-way radios, what's DIS? District? Across the district?
Yep.
What do we use two-way radios for?
So a lot of reasons. They can be, first and foremost, is safety and security. So it could be you may have a student in crisis and you need the physical restraint team to go to a particular location. You may have staff outside for physical education or recess, and so the practice is to bring radios out with you should there be an emergency or you need the nurse. Inter-district communication is probably one of the more important reasons. If we ever had an emergency, we have certain direct communications with the police department through those radios, as well as all buildings directly to central office and private channels should we need to communicate in an emergency.
And if we don't do this, we have them now, right? We have radios now?
Correct.
Are they working?
Yes. So what happens each year is you don't know when one is not going to work because it's similar to smart boards and computers. It's technology. Mm-hmm. And so we've started out for several years by getting donations from, you may remember the Shaler Honda.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Was providing donations each year for school security related purchases. And so this inventory essentially started through granting and gifting by Shaler. So we never had a line item relative to replacement of the two radios. We just purchased what we could with the money we had. So that the other goal was really to try to build in a replenishment cycle because we do know some of them are very old and some do break and some the batteries go and some, there's repeaters need to be installed in some and they're not cheap. It's not your run-of-the-mill walkie-talkie set you're getting, at a box store. So, and then I would say lastly, beyond inter-district communication, there are some teachers that have a radio right in their classroom and they take it with them everywhere they go because they may have a medically fragile student. So if a student ever were to go into seizure or have an anaphylactic reaction or asthma or what have you, depending on the severity of the medical condition, then we assign radios to those staff members so they have a direct line to the nurse no matter where they are in the building should it be needed. Those are essentially replacing a lot of the buildings, especially elementary, don't have classroom phones that can call directly into between. It's
a
mostly an
safety issue
intercom
then.
system.
It's a safety issue.
It's safety and security. I'd say both, yeah.
The next items are to replace the gym lights with LEDs, a belt sander, iPad minis, fence replacement with chain link fence, traveling sound system, Clark heated carpet extractor, badge access exterior gym door.
Is it broken? Is the badge access on that?
No, is that Strong School?
Yeah, Strong,
it is
at Strong.
Okay. Yes, when they take the students out for outdoor gym classes, they go out through the door that goes to the playground.
Yep.
If they're playing there on the playground, they cannot get back into that door if the door is not propped open. So then they do go around to...
Prop the door, I hope, right?
Yeah, no, they don't prop the door. They go around to the vestibule that's a little further down. So this is just a
So if
more
they ever
direct
needed to get
point
back
of
into the building
access.
for an emergency, something was going on in the park in the area, they can't get in the door they came out of. They have to go around the building.
Correct.
So they can't access their own building.
Correct.
Well, okay.
Controller cards for the EMS, and the Heinemann Benchmark Assessment System. Kaufman Test of Educational Achievement, iPads for augmentative and alternative communication, installation of rubber flooring in the cafeteria at Hatton, the Math Olympiad, elementary and middle school, and the SHS stairs repair at door number 9. Oh, I'm sorry, and the basketball shot clocks.
So the shot clocks are a requirement. We have to find
Yeah,
out.
they're required, yeah.
Somewhere that'll have to come. That's
Yeah.
that's $7,500 that has to come out of the operating budget somewhere.
Excuse me, they're required, so we can't take it out, is that correct?
Well, we can take it out, but we got to pay for it out of the operating budget.
Right, okay.
What about the stairs by door 9?
These are the stairs that go to the lower level at the high school. The nosing on them has broken loose. The concrete has spalded. It's basically a repair of the concrete and the nosing.
Drip hazards, basically.
Yep.
Safety issue.
Yes.
Yeah. So how much are we cutting from the non-lapsing and applying to the budget?
$795,228.
What was it, Colleen, again?
$795,228.
And it brings our percentage now to 6.28
Yes.
from a 7 point.
The original was 7.64.
I don't want to. Does anyone else have any questions? I have some more, but if anyone else
Ask
has-
him what effect that has.
Did you want to, Jasper? No? Okay. Mr.
So,
O'Shannah?
yeah, so just a couple of things. So I just want to go back to some other questions, because I didn't realize we were going to present a budget number instantly and just try to vote on it. So some of the data that you provided during the workshops, and then I think a question came up tonight about how did you come up with these schools, these comparative districts? And, there was one set, and then there was a question, always cherry picking, and then you came up with another set, because you were asked for some specific schools actually to go after. How did you come up with those districts, and why those particular ones?
So the first set of districts I chose, I want to have, thinking back to the initial budget presentation, I believe it was Milford, Shelton, and Wallingford, together with Southington within the initial budget presentation, because those were the same districts that the agency who performed our special ed audit had identified as comparable districts. Same DIRG, similar sizes. The second set of districts I chose, Simsbury, Avon, Glastonbury, Farmington, against Southington, was because they were Hartford County districts that this board often compares themselves to every time we look at how we fare as a Hartford County district. We've seen it, year over year. And I also felt it was important that when we think about educational cost sharing and how the state grant is calculated, that Southington's grand list was actually higher than most of those towns. So maybe not the median household income, but the property wealth. And so that's the part that unfortunately penalizes Southington in terms of receiving more of a state share, but it's a good problem to have if we have property wealth. Obviously you want that in your community. So, you can't have it both ways. The third set of data I chose, I don't recall saying I was choosing them because they were equal. I said they were comparable because of the size of the enrollment and the size of the population of students with disabilities, and I said they had to match both of those criteria to be considered similar or comparable. Certainly, we recognize they're not all Hartford County districts. Some are Fairfield County, as Trumbull was identified. We also say that there's different demographics in those communities, and I would agree with that. And I think the point was made tonight. The challenge we have in Southington is how much more those comparable districts with similar enrollments and similar students with disability populations have, how much more state aid they get because of the formula when we talk about property wealth and median household income. So I think, and I don't know if this was the intention, but it almost made my point that they're getting a lot more state aid, so we need to rely a lot more on local aid to maintain the cost of doing business, and which has been level services the past 2 years. So I've tried multiple data sets now, and every data set I find, you can find flaws with it, right? They're not apples to apples. And as I had said in my opening remarks to the budget, and I don't know that this was a surprise this evening, but I've been part of many budgets over the year, and I've never heard this is going to be a good year. The fact is that given Board of Education budgets make up the largest share of most municipal budgets, it is common for taxpayers to feel that Board of Education budgets are overfunded. End quote. That was what was said when I initially proposed the budget. So nobody's denying that it's the largest portion of a municipal budget. That's not different in any municipality in the state of Connecticut.
Right, exactly.
So, other than regional districts, which there's some cost share involved, but we are not a regional district. So, I also understand, and I want to reiterate, I said I fully plan on engaging in the community to the best of my ability during this budget season. I'll be deliberate to ensure groups are not pitted against one another, as we all have a responsibility to do our best with the resources we have. So, we understand there are difficult decisions ahead. I chose those towns to try and present as much information I could to give the community different lenses to look through relative to our staffing levels, so there wasn't an assumption that our Board of Ed is overfunded, which is, as I just said, sometimes what people infer when it's the largest portion of your municipal budget. So I don't think any other data set with other towns I can give you. Mr. Carson had asked for some data, as you all know, at the last workshop, and I provided him that data as well. And I won't speak for him, but from my own observation, it didn't change the story. It was an entirely different set of data, and I think it continues to accentuate some of the challenges we talk about relative to our fiscal situation. So, and I'll leave that piece to him if he wants to talk about that further. But to answer your question, it was the data sets were chosen to try and create different visuals and comps relative to staffing levels, funding levels, and various communities in Durgs, Hartford County, and across the state.
So, and I just want to go over some other stuff. So, like, we got an email, a letter from the town manager, right, about the grand list. The grand list went up again this year, 385, and it's funny, his last sentence says, I want to also mention the Board of Education and Superintendent Steve Medancy, who establishing a first-class school system has been an important part of Southington's growth in terms of the grand list. Grand list has gone up 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, right? And our mill rate has stayed 18, 19, 0, 19, 20. These are facts that you put out to us. 0.16, 2021 negative 0.01, 2021, 22, 0, 2022, 23.1. No one wants to pay more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes. But I think if you start looking at the comparative of what the mill rate has gone up, where the mill rate has been, where the grand list has been, and where the budgets have been, I think we're putting ourselves in a really big hole here. Let's just talk, we've used those terms fiscal cliff a lot, right? Let's talk about it, because everyone says, oh, we don't have a fiscal cliff. No, let me step back from it. Let's talk about district-wide projections. I mean, I keep hearing that the people are saying the enrollment's going down, right? The projections for enrollment on both the low model, medium model, and high model are going up. We had a dip down to 2020, 2021, 2021, 22, it goes up and it continues to grow. It's not my information, this is public information. This is what we're basing a lot of our stuff about the school. So if we're saying that the projection is that the district is projecting enrollment is going down, just correct me if I'm wrong, you're the superintendent, I'm not. Are we going down? I mean, these are the data points that we're getting.
No, it's not.
So what is the projection? I mean, we got a lot of stuff we're doing in the district. Are we projecting numbers going up?
So the May, I wasn't actually here that evening because I had a family situation. But Mylone and McBroom, or SLAM actually as they're known now, did a enrollment study, which was part of our pre-referendum work relative to elementary facilities. And what that showed was that our increase would be steady and then actually increase over the next 10 years. Also, I've pointed out various times at Board of Finance meetings when the question has come up that you're down 100 students or you're down 200 students, why aren't there 8 teachers gone? And I remind people that we have, and I was looking at this last night, we have 354 classrooms. So 200 students, unless they all come from the same classrooms at the same school, they don't equate to one teacher. 200 students would be 0.65 students per class. So a classroom wouldn't even see one, to your point, one less student, even with the decline in enrollment, in a way that's tangible. So the challenge with that as well is, it goes back to educational cost sharing, that's based on our per pupil expenditure. So even in years where you have a dip, that year you're going to get whacked in terms of the base rate ratio, base aid ratio they're going to provide. But I think as we look ahead to the referendum in November 23, that enrollment study is going to be an important information because I know we're trying to figure out 7 schools, 8 schools, and whatnot.
All right, so let's talk money now, I guess. Let's talk fiscal cliff, of which, we've talked about it on this board. We've talked over the last couple of budgets how unfortunate it is how we have to continue to deal with the cutting. Let's talk about the real numbers, and please tell me if I'm wrong, because these are numbers I think I've got right. So in 2021, 2022, we used ARP ESSER funds of $1,020,088 to plug a hole in the budget, right? And then we also had, let me see, $1,020,088.
Right.
So that's, those are monies that came from the government. They're not our money, but we used it to help our operating budget, correct? Which didn't come from the town. Those are monies that are one time, not going to come back. Okay, so that's $1 million in the hole at that point. Second year, 2022, 2023, we used $465,900 in ARP ESSER funds to plug a hole again, right?
Correct.
One-time funds, we're not going to come back again. So we put ourselves back $1,020,000 plus $465,000 on top of that. Additionally, we spent $706,000 from non-lapsing because you pulled, the only reason we were able to only use $465,000 of our ESSER money is because you pulled special projects out. And when we say special projects, we're not talking, we're making posters and stuff. It's maintaining the school, maintaining the buildings, making sure that we provide safety-related items, of which we're talking about reducing 8 of them tonight out of the non-lapsing account. So, for a million and a half in the hole now. And now we're looking at another $795,000 on top of that. So, worst case scenario, we're starting at $795,000 in the hole next year, if this happens, because we're using non-lapsing funds. You throw on top of that an additional $465,900 and an additional $1,020,000. How do we ever dig out of this hole?
Never.
I mean, guys, how do we ever dig out of this hole?
But how do you figure when, again, like we're doing one-time things, $1.8 million to self-insurance? You know, again, like these are things that I would imagine aren't going to be happening every single year. I mean, again, nobody has a crystal ball.
Don't know.
But again, like it's, and let me just say something for a second, is I can't have an honest conversation with my colleagues on the other boards. Hey, guys, we really need this money, when we have $1 million in the kitty fund. So essentially, I think what this budget portrays is, again, we are all in. We've looked at absolutely everything. It would be nice to have non-lapsing funds to be able to apply to certain things, and to your point, certain safety and security things. But at the end of the day, what's more important to me is having actual staff in the buildings with our students, rather than whether or not a door has to be checked periodically, or whether or not they have to walk a little bit around a building. It's more important to me that our staff is intact.
There's no doubt.
But
There's no
and
doubt.
let me finish. But with what we're proposing here is, yes, it's unfortunate we can't start clicking off the list again. But now I feel confident going with my other colleagues on the different boards, Democrats and Republicans, and being able to say that this is a budget that is bare bones. This provides us an opportunity to really reset, to a certain other board members' points, a way that we're properly funding our schools and maintaining levels of services. And now we could start having honest conversations about how we advance that moving forward.
And so is there a commitment that there's going to be no further cuts?
I don't know, but I can't have that conversation if there's places that we clearly, hey, you have $500,000 somewhere. How do you, if I was your, again, hypothetically, if I was your son, if my son came to me and said, Dad, I need money, and it's for something that it's a want, not necessarily a need, you can make that argument, but essentially, how do you have that conversation when, no, you have it all saved, but now we're stuck in this other situation?
So these needs, I mean, and I get it, and I hear what you're saying, but we're putting ourselves, again, $1 million plus $465,000 plus $795,000 in the hole. I don't know how we ever dig out of that hole.
You're right. We are taking money that we should be using for the projects that have value, absolutely have value.
But not necessarily for the projects. I recommended, my comment earlier was to
Was
say,
to
don't
s-
spend it at all. Hold on to it. Let's get through the budget process. Let's see where we land. You can shake your head all you want, but the fact of the matter is, we have to figure out what we're doing before we just say we're not going to do certain things. We need to understand what the budget is. And quite frankly, I at least what I heard in the budget meetings and prior to that is this board, I think we have faith in our superintendent. I do. I mean, I don't see anything new coming
bless you.
out of the budget. No new people, no new projects, no new nothing. It's a level services budget, right? Coming in to say, this is all I want. I want to maintain the district the way we are right now, and let's see where we go forward from there. But we need to keep teachers in the classroom.
Mhm.
That is the number one
Absolutely.
priority. We
Yeah.
need to keep teachers in the classroom. So what we need to do as a Board of Education is we need to say, our superintendent said, this is what he needs and this is why. Let's go out and explain it. Let's communicate to people. What is the budget? Why are we here? Why are we coming up with this number? What do you get with this? You said it yourself, Madam Chair. You said we have to make a decision. Are we going to educate or are we going to dismantle our education system? Right? So I think what we need to end up doing is saying, this is what we feel as a board we need to maintain the education system where we are in the town of Southington. That's what I think. And then, bottom line, the finance board and the town council have the ultimate decision on what is going to happen with our budget. But the Board of Education is responsible for educating kids. We need to do it fiscally responsibly. And I think not adding new teachers, not adding new programs, not adding new staff, not adding anything pretty damn fiscally responsible.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment?
And Joe, for your comment of speaking to the other boards in town, you want to have a conversation or be able to have a conversation. We have a responsibility, I believe, as a Board of Education, as Zaya has said, to maintain level services, and that's what this budget does. That's what the superintendent presented. And that is our responsibility as members of the Board of Education, to make certain that we are maintaining level services for our students. You know, we're still playing catch-up from COVID with many of our students. I mean, I would love to see more counselors and mental health people added to our budget. We need them. Our kids need them terribly. We're not doing that. He didn't put anything new in this budget. So I think the non-lapsing fund should not be touched. I think we have some variables that we should wait and see. Self-insurance, I guess you didn't meet Wednesday, Mrs.
Did not.
Clark?
No, we did not.
You did not, so we don't know where that stands yet.
Nope, we do not.
So there are a lot of variables that are still going to be added to our, that could change the picture of our budget, we just don't know that yet. To make this big a cut is just unacceptable for me.
Okay.
And touching the non-lapsing, I think is a wrong move for us to make at this point.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I disagree that it's our job to kick the can to the Board of Finance and the Town Council to make decisions on how we should budget our money. I disagree with that statement wholeheartedly. I understand, and I think everybody on this board, we've heard us all night, like nobody's happy about where we're at this year. It's a tough year for everybody, but we still have to make tough decisions. And I think that what we've presented here is the responsible way to do this. To Joe's point, right? We've got a non-lapsing account that has over $1 million available that we can use to help overcome some of these unusual cost increases that we've seen this year, right? Health insurance and what have you. The only way we can do that is if we ourselves, right? Let's look at where we should be spending money and where should we not. We're not cutting services by reallocating the non-lapsing fund. I keep hearing that statement. We've looked at Title I funding. We said, yeah, we understand we've got to keep that in here in the non-lapsing account so that way we don't lose our current services. So the statement we're making, I understand the frustration. I think everybody's frustrated by this. Nobody's happy. But nonetheless, we have to do what's right for ourselves, for the board. We have to do what's right for the school, for our students, and also for the taxpayers. It's an absolute fact. And so I just want to make sure, right, that we're being honest with the statements that we're making.
I agree. And I don't believe we are kicking the can to the finance board. I think what we're doing is setting a budget that we feel is appropriate for the education system in the town of Southington. I believe the can we're kicking is the financial can to next year and the year after, because we're gonna have the same problem next year. We're gonna have the same problem the year after. We continue to kick the can down the road because we're not facing up to the fact that we've got this hole that we continue to dig further and further and we can't see out of. So that's the can we're kicking.
Okay. Sean?
And my comment to that is the conversation in the community hasn't been had and hasn't started. We are now starting that conversation, okay? And I wasn't here 4 years ago. I wasn't here 6 years ago. I wasn't part of receiving one-time federal and state grants. I wasn't part of those budgets. So I can't speak to that, but I can speak to the fact that let's remind the public and the board that these are non-lapsing funds. They are going away, whether we like it or not. So to just put them on hold until we figure something out or, you know, hold the project in limbo as pending, again, until we have hard numbers, when is that? You know, I don't like our budget process. I don't like our budget cycles, but what I am committed to do is start a conversation in the community that this board hasn't done, we haven't done as a community, whether it be Board of Finance, Town Council, or otherwise. So when I asked the superintendent for, for data and for budget matrix and for comparisons, these are things to start a conversation. So again, we don't run into this issue. Moving forward, budget at cycle after budget cycle after budget cycle. So is there a time and place to, like I spoke to last time, reset and figure out where we are as a community and how much we value our education within Southington, and how competitive we want to make it within the state that we live in? I'm all ears, and I'm willing to have those difficult conversations. But for purposes of this budget cycle, we're doing what we need to do.
So the non-lapsing funds aren't going away, but they are now. But it's our ESSER funds, the government's funds that are going away, that we're not gonna get,
Right.
that are creating this hole for us. And I agree with you. We need to have that conversation.
Yes, we do.
We need to bring these books out there and explain to the community, between the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the director of finance, the board of education members, the administrators at the schools, to say, this is why this budget is what it is. I agree. I think we need to explain and have that open, honest dialogue. And then I agree with you wholeheartedly. Then it's a community decision. We feel that this budget at this rate is necessary because of this. This is what it gives you, this is what's not coming. And then we put it out there, and then it's up to the other, it's not kicking the can. It's putting the community, educating the community, making sure everybody understands what happens if we do this. I mean, it's a $2 million reduction you're proposing tonight, right?
Yes, yes.
If my math is correct, it's 40 teachers. It's not necessarily going to be, but it's 40 teachers. Am I right?
About
40
that.
teachers.
We didn't talk
Don't
about
like to say
teachers.
it, but
We're talking about wanting to have
Nobody's-
teachers in the classroom. It's not, I said it equates to 40 teachers. 20 teachers equal $1 million.
I think we can all agree that this is the beginning of a bigger conversation.
But we should have been part of this conversation, because wouldn't it have been
No,
nice
no,
if
no,
we were
no,
able to
I'm-
have
no,
a
no, no.
unanimous vote tonight,
No.
as we normally do on a budget? But we weren't included in any of this, which is why I'm as frustrated as I am, because I don't know any of the data that you're presenting tonight.
And understandable. And I will take responsibility for that, Mr. O'Shana. I was not available.
But it's not one day. So maybe the answer is, why don't we table the budget tonight and have further conversations? Let's have another workshop. Because
Yeah,
if
why
we
don't you-
table the
why
work,
don't you
the
wanna
thing
do
tonight, and we have another workshop, and we can walk through these things, I mean, when we walk through the non-lapsing funds, there are certain things in there that I'm saying, yeah, we don't need. But when you're talking about cutting safety and of our kids, and physical safety of our kids, that's a problem. So I'd like a motion that we table the budget this evening.
I would second that motion. As I said before, Mrs.
There's
Carter.
no
there are-
discussion, there has to be a vote.
No discussion, call
No
the roll.
discussion, it's a vote.
It's a vote.
All in favor?
No discussion.
We have a motion out.
Motion to table
Right,
supersedes.
and now the motion to table, now it's a roll call vote.
It's a
Right.
roll call vote to table the motion. To table.
Mr. Bashevsky,
No.
Mrs. Carmody,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
No.
Mr. Charnowski,
No.
Mr. O'Shana,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mrs. Clark.
No.
Five noes and 2 yeses.
Okay. We now have a motion in front of us for the budget, and we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Could you do a roll call vote, please?
On what, on the,
On the
the
budget.
budget.
On the budget.
As presented.
As presented,
you proposed
Yes.
6.28.
yes.
Mr. Bashevsky,
Yes.
Mrs. Carmody,
No.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Charnowski,
Yes.
Mr. O'Shana,
No.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Motion passes. This is a hard year.
It would have been easier if we had met together. Very disappointing.
Okay. Next item, looking for a motion for the, to table, yeah.
Move to table UPSU negotiation committee appointment?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're tabling the UPSU appointment because I haven't asked anybody.
Did you appoint?
No.
No, I didn't.
No,
That's
she
the-
didn't.
I-
That's
I
why she's
haven't
tabling.
appointed
Are you
anybody.
looking at me?
I'll ask you after,
talking to
how's
me?
that?
Are
I
you
will
talking
ask
to
you
me?
after, how's that? Mr. Sharnowski, you have, yeah, okay.
Move to approve the removal of the visitor verification system from the listing of approved projects under fiscal year 2020 non-lapsing account.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote no.
You're voting no on that? Okay. And the second one, Mr. Sharnowski, I believe that's you also?
Move to approve the educational specifications for the SHS partial roof replacement project.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any, okay. And then Mr. Darrenowski isn't here, so
Move to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Colleen, when
So
is
moved.
that committee negotiations? Are they afternoon meetings?
yeah, they're gonna be.
All those in
afternoon
favor?
meetings. Aye.
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 Trying to answer a question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like 3:30 in the afternoon.
You think it's gonna be a long
Sherry's gonna be doing it,
secretaries and
and the secretaries and food service